Hello everybody, welcome back to the workshop. So in this video, we are going to be turning our soft template that we made in a previous video. I'll leave that linked up in the description down below and at the end of this video. We're going to turn this soft template that we made the other day into a hard template like what you see right here. So now I've already done this one, but I have made up a different style acanthus leaf, and we'll be cutting that out of a piece of stainless steel as well. We'll get right into this, and so I hope you guys will enjoy the video and you'll stick around to the end. So the first step is that we need to take and draw this on to this piece of stainless. There's a bunch of different ways that you can do this. You can tape this piece on flat and then scribe it with a carbide scribe. You can try to hold it and scribe around it ever so lightly. You can do that. One way of doing it, it's slightly less accurate, is use a Sharpie. And if you have one of those really fine tip Sharpies, like a pin, it is even better. So as you can see, this is a little bit taller than what the piece of material I have, so I'm using the excess of the material just by turning it here into the corner and getting it to fit on the piece of metal. And all we're going to do is hold down a good section of it so it doesn't monkey around on us, and we're going to draw out the outline. Now, doing templated patterns like this will always introduce a little bit of variance into each one. So, and that's okay. You know, I mean, we're blacksmiths, we're not machines, so it's okay to have a little bit of variation into each one. So don't get too down on yourself if you vary from your paper pattern just slightly. It won't really matter. Just as long as the general concept's the same, as in you're not missing one lobe altogether, and the rest of your in your pattern required to have a 3-lobe design, and you just decided to make it a 2-lobe design. So just be cautious of that. But for the most part, you should just be able to draw and doodle right around here like so. So now that we've got this template basically all drawn here, I went ahead and just sped that part up because, well, just clipped out anyhow. You don't need to see me for 10 minutes drawing on our piece. But there we go. You guys get the ideal. That's basically what you're looking for. We're just simply tracing it onto the piece. And at this point, like I said in the other video on our soft template, if you just scooch the template back ever so much, you end up with your center line. Because we folded the piece of paper in half, it should give us almost a perfect center. So you just line it up with your template, and then you sconch it down just a bit, and that should give you your center line at the bottom of your paper pattern. And then you should be able to mark out a center line on the piece using a scrap bit of paper. Pretty easy way of doing it. You just set it on your center lines and just go ahead and draw in that center line now. That'll make things a little easier down the road to line up and align with drawings and things of that nature. So now that that's done, now you have a couple big questions in mind here. How do we cut this out? The traditional method, and perhaps I would pose maybe even a better method, would be to use chisels to be able to chisel this outline out. Using the proper radius curved chisels to cut this perimeter out cold would actually save a lot of file work or cleanup work if you cut it out cold. You can basically just go straight to forging at that point. You know, you cut it with the chisel lines, get it hot, finish the cut all the way through around the perimeter, and go right to forging. There'll be very little rag or any sort of cleanup work that you'll have to do with that method. Other methods include you can use a saw and saw into this, but I find that to be super tedious if you're trying to use a bandsaw to cut in all these little corners and stuff like that. Really not that handy. So barring all that, the next easiest process is to plasma cut this. Not everybody has a plasma cutter. I do, however, and I plasma cut this piece out of this piece of stainless. Again, it just seemed to be the easiest way to do it. Now, I'll go ahead and mention this at this point in time. I am offering all of these patterns in all the patterns that you see here that you can print off and just copy and paste onto your own printer paper and cut out yourself. I'm adding all these acanthus leaf patterns, including this one here, which are some of my most favorite ones to use. I'm going to add all these acanthus leaf patterns here into the template bundle. I have a whole bundle at blacksmithpdfs.com, which is an entire bundle of every template that I've ever used, and I keep adding to it, so it's still a great deal. You get all the previous templates that I've ever mentioned in any of my videos, and you get these additional templates as well. So go check those out. Of course, there will be some of these, and there's a lot of free templates over there at the website as well at blacksmithpdfs.com. So check that out. That's a great way of supporting this channel. You know, it helps me just continue to make videos like this because they are fairly time consuming to make. But with that being said, let's get in to go ahead and plasma cut this out. The plasma cutter I'm using is a Hobart Air Force. Let me read down here what it says. I always forget what it is. It's an Air Force 250 CI. And so it's a self-contained air compressor inside of it, so you don't need additional oxygen or air compression, which is good in one way, bad in another, but it eats through small, thin material like this, no problem, all the way up to about 1/4 inch plate. If you're in the market to really upgrade your shop to something and you're going to do a lot of this type of work, I really recommend you check out getting a plasma cutter. I will put a link for a similar plasma cutter down in the description down below. Full disclosure, that is an affiliate link, so if you decide to purchase through that affiliate link online, I get a little kickback at no extra cost to you if you do that, so FYI. If not, you don't purchase through the link, just use the link as, you know, to find out more information about the tool that I was talking about here. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get this thing cut and we'll get on to the next process, which is cleaning this blank up. So we have this piece all ground up on the back side. We got it cut out. Works pretty well. Now we need to take care and address the insides of these cuts. Now, I'll go ahead and put this out here as a disclaimer. You do not want to use tack sharp files for this process. The reason why is that carburization that ends up happening along the cut there, it creates a very hard oxide that dullens your files very quickly. So use fairly wore out files or really good war files that you don't mind using on rough work, but not necessarily on fine finish work for this process. Another real quick tip, we're going to use a rag in the vise, and I'm going to show you why here in just a second. We'll lock this in the vise like so. And then I will go ahead and use one of my files on it. And I want you to listen to the noise. Pretty ear deafening, pretty nasty sounding. That's coming from the reverberations of the metal scooting as you're raking the file across. If you lay something like a rag onto this piece and now grip it in the rag, grip it about the same distance if I can, and now do the same thing. now it's a lot more manageable. Also, if you can file away from the vise versus into the vise, it will keep that screeching noise to a minimum. So those are just some helpful hints on that. Anyways, prepare to wear ear protection, don on ear protection when you're doing this. That's perfectly okay. There we go. So basically, you're just going to continue this process right on around. Do not be afraid to re-grip this at some point. Grip it down lower in the vise, take it to the edge, do whatever you've got to do to put yourself in a position where you can grip this with the minimal amount of squalling from the file. You will just have a much better time filing if you take that advice. Obviously, you can see how that rings. So harmonics has a lot to do with your filing noises. So if you don't want to have the filing noises, obviously, I've just shown you the way to correct that. So you're going to find it difficult at times to get in at all these lobes, and on more complex designs, you may actually have to do courtesy bends. So you may have to, I'll show you on this piece right here, you may have to bend one thing out of the way so you can get at the other thing, bend it up the opposite way, so on and so forth, so you can get at all the edges on more complex work. This is fairly open, so I'm not going to concern myself with it too much. And I'm not going to show you this entire thing. I just wanted to take and show you these quick steps here to having a little bit better of a go at it. So the two files that I'll use most likely is a half round bastard cut file and a full round bastard cut file. Now this is a 1/4 inch diameter file. Well, not 1/4 inch, sorry. 3/8 inch diameter file, and then this one here obviously is like what they consider an 8-inch long file. It's about 3/4 of an inch wide. Really good file for getting into some tight areas and cleaning and smoothing up these edges. So it shouldn't take you real long, and you may be wondering, well, why do you want to do this anyhow, Roy? Isn't this just a template? The smoother your template is and the more exacting this portion is, a lot more exacting and accurate will your final pieces be. So it really pays to take the time to clean up your template while you've got a chance. So this way you don't have to keep cleaning up your work and your work doesn't just keep getting rougher and rougher looking. Now the biggest problem with this is keeping this material down out of your way. Sometimes it will have a tendency to grab and snag. And if it grabs and snags, it'll rip a hole in it. So don't use a good cloth for this either. Not one that you don't mind getting a little wore out. So it doesn't take much on this thin material to clean that up. So this is progressing pretty nicely. It's coming along pretty good. So just keep gripping that right there. I have a few projects coming up that I'll be showing off these templates in action, so be sure to check out those videos as well on the channel. Now that you know how to make your own templates and you're surmising on how to clean it up, and I've shared up those things, I won't be going over all this stuff again in those videos, as the videos that I will be doing will require many weeks of work, of actual work on the individual customers' orders. So I will not have the time to rehash all of this information. So I hope you take that up front, and you know, if you need to resource this and you're like, hey, why didn't you include that in this video? That's why. Just don't have the time for all that malarkey while I'm trying to make a living at this. So sometimes you'll find that'll happen to you if you're doing blacksmithing for a living, especially if you try to take on YouTube at the same time. You'll find that there's just certain stuff that's not very photogenic, and you just don't have the time for the amount of hours that you spend on it. But anyways, so there you go. That's kind of cleaning up. You guys get the point. You get the main gist of it. A few final thoughts here on these pieces. Get this as smooth as you can, and then if you want to lay out as accurate as you can to this size and dimension, use a scribe. I'll go over here and grab this one real quick that I don't have in my thing. Oh no! All right, well, I don't have my scribe. Man, well, I thought it was going to be absolutely marvelous there for a second, and turns out I don't have my scribe where I thought it should have been. All right, well, something else I'll have to look for in the shop. Anyways, scribe is just a really thin, high carbon steel tool that you can scribe around the edges like so. In fact, if you wanted to take the end of a file, you could sharpen that a bit and turn that into a scribe if you wanted to. It really helps to lay out your material with a scribe like that if you want to cut stuff out accurately, as close to the pattern's dimension. If you use things like a marker, or you use things like a silver marking pencil, and it's got a thick line to it, just remember to cut to just on that line. If it's a marker, you want to cut to just the inside of that line, and then that will help get you closer to your original dimensions that you started off with. Yeah. So that's basically it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, let me know down in the comment section down below. And yeah, as always, just thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Have a great one, guys. Talk to you later.